What was the strangest meeting your teacher had with your parents? My heart sank when Ms. Reynolds asked me to stay after class. Your parents are coming in tomorrow at 4, she whispered. Please make sure they're on time. Ms. Reynolds wasn't just any teacher. She was the toughest English teacher at Lincoln Middle School. We'd been butting heads all semester. It started when she accused me of plagiarizing my first essay. This vocabulary is too advanced for an 8th grader, she said, making me rewrite it in front of her during lunch. I was humiliated, but did it anyway, using the same words I'd used before. She seemed surprised, but never apologized. Since then, she'd been extra critical of everything I turned in. Last week, she'd assigned a personal history project. Write about someone who showed courage in difficult circumstances. All night, I couldn't sleep, mentally reviewing every homework assignment I'd turned in late and every test I might have failed. I'd never had a parent-teacher meeting before in 8th grade, and my stomach twisted thinking about what I'd done wrong. At breakfast, I casually mentioned the meeting to my parents. Dad nearly choked on his coffee. What did you do this time, Jacob? He sighed. Nothing, I protested, though I wasn't entirely sure. Mom looked worried. Is this about the essay you stayed up late working on? The one about Grandpa Jim? I nodded. Grandpa Jim had died 3 years ago. He never talked about Vietnam, but after he passed, we found a box of medals and photos in his attic. Dad would sometimes share snippets of stories Grandpa told him after a few beers. Stories he wouldn't tell the rest of us. For the essay, I'd interviewed Dad for hours. He'd opened up about Grandpa's nightmares, the shrapnel still embedded in his leg, and the men he'd saved during an ambush. I'd worked harder on this paper than anything else that year, partly because I barely remembered Grandpa Jim and wanted to understand him better. The next day at school, rumors spread like wildfire. Tyler from homeroom claimed he'd overheard Ms. Reynolds telling another teacher I might be held back a year. Sophia whispered that parent-teacher conferences this early usually meant serious trouble, like expulsion. By lunch, my appetite was gone. My best friend Marco tried cheering me up. Maybe she just wants to tell your parents you're actually a genius, he joked, stealing my untouched pudding cup. Yeah, right, I muttered. More likely, she found out I was the one who accidentally set off the fire alarm during standardized testing. That wasn't true, but my mind was spiraling with worst-case scenarios. During last period, Ms. Reynolds avoided eye contact with me completely. When the final bell rang, she quietly said, "My classroom at 4, Jacob," before quickly walking away. I sat on the bench outside her room for 45 minutes. When my parents finally arrived, Dad looked annoyed about leaving work early, and Mom kept smoothing her shirt nervously. "Do you know what this is about?" Dad whispered. "No idea," I lied, not mentioning the plagiarism accusation or the fire alarm joke. The three of us walked in, and Ms. Reynolds gestured to the chairs arranged in front of her desk. Unusually, she locked her classroom door and pulled the shade down on the window. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice suddenly shaking. "I needed to talk to you about Jacob's essay." My dad glanced at me with confusion. Was there a problem with it? I braced myself for the worst. Had she caught some accidental plagiarism? Did she think I made everything up? Ms. Reynolds pulled out my paper about my grandfather's time in Vietnam. "No, it's exceptional. That's why I needed to speak with you privately." She turned to my dad. "Your father-in-law, was he James Miller from the 25th Infantry Division?" My mom gasped. "Yes! How did you know?" Ms. Reynolds' eyes filled with tears. "The soldier Jacob wrote about, the one who carried my father 3 miles to the medical tent after he was hit." She pointed to my essay. "That was your father." She opened her desk drawer and pulled out a folded, yellowed letter. My dad wrote home about the soldier who saved him. He said, "If not for James Miller, you wouldn't have a husband to come home to." We all sat in stunned silence until Ms. Reynolds whispered, "I've been teaching for 22 years, and I never thought I'd meet the family of the man who saved my father's life." As we left, she hugged me tightly. "Your grandfather was a hero, Jacob, and I'm sorry I never got to thank him."